Why, hi, everybody. Happy hump day. Thank you for joining us here at the Daily Show. Well, right here where the bowling community is growing, Bowlers Network. I am on I would say the east side of Little Rock on my way to Nashville to watch Vanderbilt Bowl this weekend in their home event. But because I'm so committed to Jay and Zach, I pulled over at a Starbucks looking for a sponsorship.
Just saying.
Just saying, Starbucks, I run on coffee. I'm just letting you know. I am
Rain
so
energy drink.
committed. I am so, okay, we got our plugs in, as well as you. Farmers Union Insurance, we thank you for helping us build bowling. Guys, it's good to see you guys.
As well.
Yeah, you as well. Carolyn,
Okay.
I think you've taken these calls in a different location every time we've done the show.
Pretty
Committed.
much.
Zach, committed.
It's
I'm just
impressive,
saying.
honestly. It's great.
That's right. That is commitment.
No one can say Carolyn's not committed or is willing
She's
to
committed
work.
to her
I can
craft.
tell you that. Exactly. Hey, guys, let's do a quick overview. The U.S. Open started. I have to tell you, I looked for all of our bowlers of the year, our rookies of the year. Everyone is scattered. E.J. Tackett, I think, was in 15th. Andrew Anderson in the top 30. Slow start to all of our picks, but the pattern to me looked, again, we always say this, but pair to pair, because there was a 300 shot and then there's a 176. There's a 290 shot and then there's a 167. Zach, talk a little bit about what you saw out of the pattern.
Yeah, the pattern was really interesting because usually on the PBA Tour, we've seen patterns very similar to this, and the guys crush them. The reason they're able to throw urethane in the past. At the U.S. Open, there's 0 urethane. It's kind of funny. You're seeing some wild bowling balls being thrown. Like Toon, who threw a 300 yesterday, threw it with a Hammer X. That is an entry-level, almost plastic, still reactive, but low-level reactive cover stock with a super tiny core. So really, really cool so far. You're seeing some interesting things, but yeah, the pair-to-pair has been abysmal and always is in this building. So every time in this building they put out these really flat patterns, you'll see scores go all over the place. And the other big one that was massive yesterday was the squad disparity because of how the lanes were broken down squad to squad. Squad A, they sucked. They did terrible. They only had 8 guys in the top 36 on that squad because they were breaking them down in very weird ways. B squad, they had half of the top 36 on their squad because they broke them down very, very nicely. They all started further right, and then they slowly transitioned over. C squad was a little more like B squad, but a few less people made it from there. So it was a really interesting day one on a pattern that usually wasn't insanely difficult on the PBA Tour, but I mean, even was a good score yesterday.
I agree with you. Even was a good score. It kept you in the hunt. Of course, you're always going to have those outliers that, bowl so good in your top 5 or top 8. And you're going, I don't know, I was in the same building, but I had no idea how they got that done. I want to key on something, though. Jay, I'm going to throw this to you first because, Zach, I would like your opinion on it as well. Jeff Riggles writing an article. It stated, no urethane equals no flat pattern. Now, I thought the pattern was a little flat. What effect is the no urethane rule going to have on these patterns? Or, and of course, this is an opinion, but Jay, you go first.
So I want to share a thought that, Carolyn, you and I and Pete had a conversation about, urethane when it was not, kind of when it first came out. I had a chance to talk to Chad Murphy and better understand the reasons behind and things that I guess I never thought about. And it was one of the main reasons was to kind of level the playing field a little bit more.
Okay.
And which seemed to make a little sense. Now, in listening to Kyle, one of the things that you noticed in practice was guys were actually going back to like you were talking about the Hammer Axe. They were using plastic balls scuffed to 500.
Right.
Which
right.
was really, really cool. So I think, again, what you're going to find is super old school bowling. And even the
Okay.
patterns that are laid out to 47, they're really only oiled to what, 34, and then they're brushed down
Right.
from there. Right. So
Right.
it's not playing like a true 47-foot pattern. So this is going to be a very interesting week.
So I like that you said that, because even many years ago, I have mentioned this before. I had seen 47, 49, 50 feet patterns on 50 foot, I should say, wrong word, on the with Walter Ray and Norm Duke playing out on those patterns, not playing where your head would normally tell you to play. So Zach, my question to you is, with the difference in patterns with no urethane, do you think it opens up more areas on the lane to play? And twofold question, if we're scuffing a plastic ball with 500, is that really anything different than using urethane with surface, because it's still changing the integrity of the pattern?
Yeah, two really deep questions. So, starting with the first one, yes, absolutely. Today, U.S. Open Day 2, we've already seen some one squad go, and we had Toon again, who was throwing that hammer axe yesterday on 41 feet. He was playing the same spot with the same hammer axe today, so he was able to play up the lane, trap it a little bit to stay in like the 2 teens and 220s. But that was the thing. Getting those high scores with the sanded plastics, with the entry-level balls, is not as easy as a urethane ball. It doesn't get the continuation that a urethane ball is going to get. So going on, I think we're going to see a lot of different strategies in some of these patterns, like the long pattern. We saw some guys actually playing it straighter without urethane, and we saw some guys playing it a lot deeper. There's a lot of loft being involved today. So that played more traditional, unlike the last couple of weeks where, I mean, we had a 45-foot pattern. People were throwing urethane last week on the PBA Tour. The week before, we had 50 feet, and some of the lefties were still throwing urethane on it. So this is a week that's going to be really interesting in terms of different strategies that need to be used. Now, as of the integrity of the pattern, that one gets a little bit interesting. Yes, plastic is going to carry things down, not as much as a urethane ball, but it's still going to carry things down, and there's a lot less of it. Generally, sanded plastic is not a good play for a very long time. There's going to be the big stories. Toon shooting 300 one game and leading yesterday. Belmo, I believe, shot 245 one game with his sanded plastic. But what happened today, like Toon started with that axe and it got really bad. So he had to jump in with the rest of everybody else. So because there's just so much less urethane being used, you have to be very good, or with zero urethane, you have to be very good with that sanded plastic to make it good. I think the pattern's going to be fine. That integrity is going to be okay.
Now, one of the things I also like, and Jay, you had mentioned it, you are correct. Plastic is way different. Again, it just gives you I'm not calling that a cheater ball, because I used plastic on a lot of patterns numerous times. But it really does come back to shot making as well, because the plastic ball is not going to give you that urethane reaction. It is not going to give you anything near a reactive reaction. So now we're talking about shot making, which also leads into spare shooting. And we've seen a lot of that. It's been much better than the first couple rounds the first week. Speaking to some of the guys, they're much happier with their spare shooting. But Jay, do you agree with that? We're back to that traditional shot making, and even when the lanes open up, do you think it's still going to come down to making sure you're throwing the best shot, and it's going to be the person that's the most precise?
And kind of like we talked last week about last week's event. And I was talking about the players that can control the pocket, down 5, and really control things, leave themselves makeable spares. Obviously, that's going to become a huge premium at the U.S. Open over time. No question about it. You're not going to have a lot of guys going out throwing 6-bag or 7. It's not going to be a strike fest. So again, making sure you control the pocket, you leave yourself makeable spares. And yeah, I mean, a plastic ball is not going to have the big core drive that a urethane would. You're also going to see a lot of guys using the Storm Concept, the Hammer NU, things like that, again, to control the pocket. So yes, of course, spare making is going to be an absolute premium. Don't leave yourself big misses, control the pocket.
Okay, I love that philosophy because we're really keeping it simple. Of course, we're not bowling, we're not throwing the shots. We're trying to keep it as simple. But I know after the first week, talking to some of the guys, that was their key when the patterns get tricky, pair to pair. They're really watching. It leads me to my next question. A lot of players were saying after that first day, because they felt like the lanes were tricky pair to pair, they would walk away in the 8th or 9th frame of the pair they were on, made sure they went down to the pair they were following to get some intel as to maybe where people were playing that pattern, which is a great tip for anybody that is watching. If you can take a second after your shot to go down and watch your next pair to give you a little bit of information on what you may see on that next pair, it actually could save you 1 or 2 frames. With that being said, what is our opinion on fresh every squad? How does that change things up instead of the fresh? Remember the years where you bowled on burn? Now it's fresh, right? Think of how many times that lane is stripped and re-oiled. How does that change things, Zach?
Yeah, that's a really good question. This is one that was a
Thank you,
big.
Zach, because every time
Absolutely.
I ask a question, you always say it's a good question. And I don't know
do.
if you're
Oh,
just being
come
nice to me.
on.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
please, come
No,
on.
this
I'm
this
just
one is a
saying.
great question. It is. It's an argument that happened a couple years ago in bowling, because when there were burn squads, you were seeing loft city. Everyone had to loft it. I mean, even today in 6 games, by games 5 and 6, people were lofting the gutter cap. That was just how it is. That's what they found was going to be the best play. So when the burn squad was a thing, people were lofting it 20, 30 feet down the lane just because of how much the lanes broke down and how they broke down. So there's pros and cons to it. The pros are you're not getting that crazy loft. It doesn't turn into who can control the loft game best, but you always have to remember loft is a tool. Loft is another tool, just like every other trick in your bag. So eliminating the loft a little bit to get that fresh oil does truly give you that squad equalness, the equality between squads where you're not going to get it perfect, but if everybody's always on the same conditions, that should make it a little more fair. So yesterday, like I said, A squad struggled, B did well, C did okay. The squad, it was closer than it could have been if we had a fresh squad, a burn squad, and another fresh squad.
I like that. I like that analogy. You are correct. It is. It
Well,
is
you guys are
supposed
just
to
complimenting
create.
each other all over,
I know.
aren't you?
I know.
That's what this
It's
show
Here
is.
I
It's
sit.
great.
I don't need
and
it.
that it's only because Zach, I've asked him for a few things, and I'm just saying he's helping me out, really learning some things. Not that you haven't helped me as well, Jay. Just saying. I do like that with the squad equity. The only thing about that is, no matter how hard you try, I do think squad equity is so hard to duplicate. So many outside forces. And again, it's so, how can I say it? Participating for so many years in tournaments that had 3 squads. I bowled on fresh and burn. Then they went to the fresh. I got to tell you, the strategy does change. It isn't as if you have 3 sets of bowling balls and equipment, your ABC plan, because the lanes are breaking down. You know it's always fresh, but it's just so hard to duplicate. Jay, in your opinion, though, we have talked to many of the players. Controlling the pocket, yes, is number 1. But if they had to change their game plan, how do you think what would they change?
Oh boy, that's another good question that I didn't prepare for it. How would they change their game plan? Well, if it was, you talking about if it's fresh versus fresh burn?
Sure, fresh.
All right. Well, I think means you can only take 10 balls. I mean, that's the key thing. When you first go in and you got to look at, what time of day are you bowling? Because obviously temperature has an effect on it. There's so many things that people overlook. And you're out of your control. How many people are going to be in the center? Again, temperature, who's bowling before you? Who are you following? These are all things that you really don't know when you're stacking your 8 balls together. So, gosh, I would imagine if you had to go back and relook at anything, it would be what balls did I put in for my 10 selections? Because that can change everything. You know, so you can put your 10 balls together thinking in practice based off of things, but who you followed, all these other factors can make or break can make or break how you ended up.
And remember that practice session, it's not overly long, right?
Right.
You get 1 day of a practice session. And within that practice session on those patterns on that day, which is prior to the tournament even starting. So by the time you get to day 5, it's way different than when you started, which we go back to something we talk about a lot. Surface is so important. Surface changes to those bowling balls are so important because you can do things to those bowling balls to make them read earlier, get down the lane, and again, give you a different reaction on the lane. I want to deviate from that just a little bit. Josh, if we could bring up the one women's pattern that was flat, I believe that was the US Open.
Yeah, women's Open.
The pattern, I just want to take, there you go. I just want to take a look at that quickly because contrary to popular belief, the women do bowl on patterns that are just as hard as the men. I think we forget about that sometimes because we play the lanes a little bit differently. You are looking here at a past US Open pattern. That looks just like a block of oil, boys, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Plain old block of oil.
The red
very
square.
Flat. It is a red square. That's exactly it. Let's talk a little bit about, even though this is a women's pattern, I believe they've actually shared patterns before. And for everyone watching, that looks intimidating. Let's show that one more time, Josh, just how flat that pattern is. Zach, what is the first key looking at this pattern that resonates in your mind as to how you would attack it?
Yeah, the first one is that you're going to notice that on the very, very edge of the pattern outside of 5, it is not truly flat. So it isn't a pure red square pattern where it's 1-to-1. There is a little tiny bit of shape on the pattern. So usually when I know the USBC Masters has used a pattern similar to this, the women have used a pattern like this, as we said, they're generally going to try to play that gutter, attempt to play that gutter, because there is that little bit of shape off of the gutter. So you might be able to give yourself 2 boards of room compared to 1 board of room. Where that is going to be key number 1 is trying to find where that hook exists on a pattern like that, because flat patterns are, at the end of the day, incredibly difficult. You have to find your little bit of wiggle room wherever you can. Sometimes you need to use the topography of the lanes. You need to use the track area to create that room. On that pattern, though, you might see more people try to play up the gutter to give themselves that little bit of wiggle room, especially because it's a 48-foot pattern. Longer patterns, you generally have more hold room and less hook room. So that's probably what this one would be.
And again, one of the things on the flatter patterns, and I don't care whether you're a guy or a girl, 600 rev rate, 275. I think every bowler would tell you that on the flat patterns, straighter is greater to start. Keeping the ball more in front of you, just to find out where that hook spot is, where the hold is. And again, I would probably use a little bit of surface. Jay, have you ever bowled a US Open, a PTQ, or even with the, tell us a little bit, you've bowled the PBA 51, correct?
Yeah.
Which they've also been a little bit flatter in the front as well over the years.
Yeah, I'll share my experience with that. And I'll try and make it quick, but talk about embarrassing. So last year.
It's not embarrassing.
No,
it's learning.
What I'm about to tell
learning.
you is, no, this is embarrassing. So last year, and we're just getting ready on our first block. And pretty much first ball, I wrap a 10 or something like that, but it was a 10. And I go to my bag, I'm like, shoot, where's my spare ball? And here I didn't bring a spare ball.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a no-no.
Yeah,
that's a no-no.
Well,
no,
I
you're
went
right.
up that.
It's embarrassing. You
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
That's the first, Jay, that is the first ball on the rack at any tournament.
We were so ready not to judge.
We're not judging. We're just telling you that this lesson has been learned, but Ballard, first ball on the rack, spare ball. But continue, Jay.
Well, so I go out and I end up missing 9 single pins that day. right? Costing me over 100 pins. And anyway, so the next day I go out and I was lucky enough to shoot, I don't know, plus something. And then the last day I needed to go like plus 240 to make the cut. And I shot ridiculous that day. I went like, I had to shoot like a plus. The last game I needed like a 2-teen or something like that because I was shooting really well. And I go out that last day and I shoot like or that last game and I shoot like a $160. But I ended the day with like a plus, I don't know, 180 plus 200 to miss the cut just under what I would have had I had a spare ball that first day. So lesson learned, listen to these guys, bring a spare ball. So,
it is true, though. I wasn't joking. Del, we were watching a tournament, and they were bowling, and two of the guys get up to bowl. Guy bowls on the left lane, guy bowls on the right lane, and all of a sudden, they're holding a play because they had to go back down to their last pair to go get their spare ball. And Del looks at me and goes, "Now, why wouldn't that be the first ball on the rack? What do they think they're going to shoot? 300 every game?" And I looked at him and I go, "Man, that sounds really funny, but it's really true. How is it not this? Well, how is it not the first ball on the rack? You are not going to shoot 300 every game, right?"
Overconfidence. I thought I was going to shoot 300 every game.
Oh, I like overconfidence. What about you, Zach? Do you think you're going to shoot 300 every game?
No,
No, it was, I don't know how it
that. Are you
happened, but
kidding
it
me?
did. I forgot my spare ball. So yes, there is an
lesson
embarrassing
learned.
story. Yes.
I love it. And now for everybody watching, you will go to league this week. You will go to your next tournament, and that spare ball, you're going to look at it and go, "Oh my gosh."
Don't do what
They
Jay
said
did.
on the Daily Show, I need to put my spare ball on the rack. Oh my gosh. Guys, this has been great. I don't know if you noticed, I got a little wind out here, some clouds starting to roll in. We talked a lot about patterns today. So on Friday, we are going to cover, if we are bowling on those flat patterns, what hand position do we need to use? How do we create that hand position? What are some of the tricks of the trade that we, Jay, Zach, and I have learned, as well as some of the pros? Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us here today. We will see everybody on Friday at 12 Central Time. Do me a favor, please. Like all of our social media, follow Bowlers Network. We've got some great things ahead. We've got some sponsors, wink, wink, that will be coming on board. And again, we absolutely love Farmers Union Insurance for coming on board from the very beginning. Everybody, have a great day. See you on Friday.